Welcome to Hornbill TV Special Explainer, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mal Ngulay. After approximately 27 years since the introduction of the Women's Reservation Bill, women in India now have reservation in the Lok Sabha and the state assemblies. Congratulations to all our women across India. On Thursday, the Parliament passed the historic legislation to provide 33% reservation for women. On September 20th, the Lok Sabha had passed the bill to amend the Constitution to provide 1/3 reservation. Likewise, the Rajya Sabha passed the bill unanimously on Thursday with about 214 members voting in support and none against it, ladies and gentlemen. So what's the significance of this new legislation, ladies and gentlemen? This is history. India's history doesn't have a strong record of women's representation. Compared to men, they have been underrepresented in the country's political institutions. The new bill provides a fair opportunity for women to participate in decision making now. This is a way that promotes gender equality. Of course, gender equality, the term today, is an extremely controversial term considering the debate about its definition in relation to rights and opportunities, men or women. Likewise, it's also controversial in most schools of modern political thought due to the differences in male and female capabilities in the modern context. But that is a topic for another day, ladies and gentlemen. The bill empowers women. That is something that is a big takeaway for all of us. The bill grants women equal access to important decision-making platforms and representation in the political sphere of the country. The bill will pave the way for women to engage in policy conversations that add unique and diverse perspectives to the government and policy directions, in this case, whether at the center or whether at the state, health, medical, educational, or even in decision making in regard to developmental goals of the country. Again, women in the establishments will also ensure that issues exclusive to women may find a place in important decisions of the country. So, ladies and gentlemen, what are the features of the reservation bill? As with most of India's approximately 448 articles in the Constitution, which by the way is the biggest and the longest constitution in the world, ladies and gentlemen, you can expect a lot of amendments in the women's reservation bill as well. For now though, these are the main features of the women's reservation bill. One, the bill reserves 1/3 of all the seats in the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies. This includes reservation in the Legislative Assembly of the National Capital Territory of Delhi. This will also apply to the seats reserved for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the Lok Sabha and the legislatures. Another feature of the bill is seat rotation. The seats reserved for women will be rotated after each delimitation process as determined by the Parliament. Again, in case you are wondering, the reservation will be provided but only for a period of 15 years or about 3 terms. However, it shall continue until such time determined by the Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. Even as Indian women and organizations across the country celebrate, there is a bad news of sorts. We have already covered some of the significant aspects of the bill. So what's the bad news here? The reservation bill will not be implemented even in 2024 or even in 2025 or even in 2026. Keep watching to find out when. The reservation bill will be effective only after a census, ladies and gentlemen. That's actually the bad news. Based on the census, another process called the delimitation exercise will be conducted to reserve seats for women. Home Minister Amit Shah had explained that the decision to implement the reservation only after delimitation is to make sure that the Delimitation Commission can decide which seats to reserve. Now, just because the bill is in place, you just can't say and give, demand so-and-so seats to women in Kohima, Dimapur and Newland district. It doesn't work that way. You'll have to go through cabinet, legislative administrative and community consultation processes before you select the reserved seats that are meant for women. So India has about 28 states and 8 union territories so far. 543 seats in the Lok Sabha and about 245 in the Rajya Sabha, including 12 nominees, and approximately across India 4,120 MLAs, which means you have to consult with a lot of stakeholders, political groups, community groups, state governments, and you have to engage the census delimitation processes, and only then they will decide the reserved seats that are meant for women according to the bill. So the government's logic is, unless we check the population of the states across the constituencies and identify the seats first, you'll have to wait. Law Minister Mr. Arjun Ram Meghwal also said it was against the provisions of the Constitution to provide reservation immediately, noting that someone may actually challenge it in the court of law. So the implementation of the Reservation Bill for women is tied directly to a fresh census and a delimitation exercise, ladies and gentlemen. The reason is, only a delimitation process will define the boundaries of territorial constituencies across India based on population changes or levels. For illustration, the current constituencies in the country are all based on the 2001 census. But what in the world is a delimitation exercise, ladies and gentlemen? The Delimitation Commission, led by a retired Supreme Court judge, does the work of analyzing census data. It demarcates fresh constituencies across the country on the basis of the population. The Commission examines population data, existing constituencies, and number of seats in a constituency or region or state. It then consults with relevant stakeholders and submits its recommendation to the government after it has engaged a study in this area. The Commission's recommendation after approval comes into force on a date which is specified by the President of India. So now, what is in there for the Reservation Bill? If at all the census and the delimitation processes are to come first and work first before we actually implement the bill. Media observers quoting sources in the central government says that India's population increased by about 30% since census 2011, ladies and gentlemen. This means that the seats in the parliament will also increase. Further, the media has already reported widely sources in the Election Commission as informing that a system called the triple test is necessary accordingly with a decision of the Supreme Court. This test is required to reserve about 33% of the seats in the Lok Sabha and the legislative assemblies for women. The first step of the triple test is to conduct a survey of the share of women in the total population area. This will then be tested and clarified by the census records. Second, the representation of women in the assemblies and parliament would have to be studied. So there are a lot of things and a potentially long time frame before you can actually enjoy the fruits of the Reservation Bill, ladies and gentlemen. For instance, according to government sources, even if the census work starts in 2024, it will take at least 2 years for the census work to be complete, because we're not talking about a village here, we're not talking about a district here, we're not talking about the state. We are talking about 28 states and 8 union territories across India, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to take a long time. Again, after that, the delimitation exercise will begin, which will take more time again, and even more time considering the possibility of widespread protests and agitations, disputes. You know India, you know how it works. And then agitations, disputes, oppositions, demands and problems from political parties and local communities across the country who would not want to have their constituency seats taken away, or who would most likely demand more seats. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, Union Home Minister Amit Shah has confirmed in the Parliament that the bill will only come into force only after 2029 after a delimitation exercise is conducted in the country. Let's say it's going to be interesting. Thank you for watching Hornbill TV, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Al Nguli. See you next time.